So nutrition and health concerns in children today are very apparent. We know that the diets of U.S. children today are not as healthy as they could be, and as a result, children are not as healthy as they could be. Some of the health and nutrition concerns affecting children in the U.S. are related to their dietary and exercise patterns. The high calorie, high sugar, high salt, high saturated diet and low activity lifestyle contribute to obesity and chronic disease in both children and adults. And other nutrition related health concerns in children include dental caries and lead poisoning. So we know that the rising rate of childhood obesity is assessed by determining his or her BMI, and we talked about that, and or plotting it on a gender-specific BMI for age growth chart to determine their percentile. The BMI percentile is then used to classify the child as obese, overweight, or healthy and underweight. And it's estimated that about 17% of U.S. children and adolescents ages 2 through 19 are obese. And along with obesity come another, we know all the chronic health conditions, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high blood cholesterol, as well as social and psychological challenges of being overweight. So the goal is to reduce the incidence of childhood and overweight obesity, and that requires changes in eating and activity patterns, behavioral counseling, and the support of caregivers. And the goal is to promote healthy body weight in all children and to help overweight and obese children stop gaining weight or to slowly lose weight. The intensity of weight loss programs recommended for children depends on their weight category and their health risks. So for overweight children at low risk, weight loss is not recommended. Rather, weight gain should be slowed while they continue to grow taller, and this allows them to grow into their weight. So a child who's at the 85th percentile for BMI at age 7 and only gains a few pounds a year can be at the 75th percentile by age 9. But for children in the obese BMI range, programs are usually designed to promote slow weight loss of no more than 1 pound per month. That's very different. And that's for children 2 to 5, and no more than 2 pounds per week for older children and adolescents, or for severely obese youth. So again, weight loss is rarely recommended for children. Usually a change both their eating and activity patterns. Slower weight gains to allow them to grow into weight. We do not recommend denying foods because that may promote further overeating by making a child feel that he or she will not get enough food to satisfy their hunger. These kids usually tell me that they're hungry all the time. So usually restrictions on food intake should be relatively mild, and the focus instead should be on offering nutrient-dense foods, as well as increasing physical activity for at least an hour a day. This can be difficult for overweight children who are often embarrassed by their bodies and shy away from group activities. Increases in physical activity need to be gradual in order to make exercise a positive experience. And a good way to start is to limit their time spent watching television and playing video and computer games. So here you can see we know that watching television encourages inactivity and unhealthy snacking. Hours spent watching television are hours when physical activity is at a minimum, and more time spent watching TV is associated with higher BMIs among children and adolescents. We also know that during children's television programming, food is the most frequently advertised product category. This diagram, this pie chart shows the types of food advertised on Saturday morning children's television programming, and shows that almost half of the commercials advertise candy, snack foods, unhealthy beverages, and pastries. So what about dental caries in this group? So we know a diet high in sugary food promotes the formation of dental caries, and because the primary teeth guide the growth of the permanent teeth, maintaining healthy primary teeth is just as important as preserving the permanent ones. Tooth decay is caused by prolonged contact between sugar and bacteria on the surface of the teeth, and when soft drinks and other sweetened beverages, which are a major source of added sugar in children's diets, are sipped slowly between meals, they increase the child's risk of tooth decay. Hyperactivity. So we hear a lot about ADHD, and although parents of children with ADHD report worsening of symptoms after excessive ingestion of candy or soda, controlled studies have now found that sugar intake affects children's behavior or cognitive performance. We know that hyperactivity involves extreme physical activity, excitability, impulsiveness, distractibility, short attention span, and a low tolerance for frustration, and also an increased difficulty in learning, but often these children are normal or above average intelligence. And again, the misconception is it's caused by eating sugar. Other possible causes is caffeine consumption in sodas, lack of sleep, overstimulation, a desire for physical attention or a lack of physical activity, and insufficient evidence for dietary treatment of ADHD, though some children can be sensitive to specific additives and may benefit from a diet that eliminates them. Lead toxicity. You wouldn't think this would be such a big issue anymore, but it really is. Environmental contaminants and air pollution, old house paint, plumbing, and ceramics. This is especially an issue in children under the age of 6. Lead poisoning, we know, can affect IQ and cause learning disabilities and behavioral problems. It accumulates in the bones and brain and teeth and kidneys. It affects the nervous system, causes anemia, kidney damage, seizures, coming to death, and effects are permanent. But iron can be removed if detected early, and that's with proper medical treatment. Okay, so let's move on to adolescents. And we know that adolescents are a unique population in many ways. They have different nutritional needs than children or infants. The physical, emotional, mental, and social changes of adolescence transform a child into an adult, and organ systems develop and grow. Puberty occurs, body composition changes, and the growth rates of nutritional requirements of boys and girls start to diverge. Also, the physiological changes associated with sexual maturation affect nutrient requirements, and social and psychological changes that occur during adolescence influence nutrient intake. Here you can see adolescent growth and development changing rapidly through the adolescent years. On the left, the graph shows the adolescent growth spurt in an 18 to 24-month period of peak growth velocity that begins at about age 10 to 13 in girls and 12 to 15 in boys. And during a 1-year period, growth spurt in girls can gain 3.5 inches in height, and boys can gain 4 inches in height. And imagine the nutrients needs when someone's growing 3 or 4 inches in 1 year. We know that age 13, some boys are physically still children, while others have matured sexually. And because there's large individual variations in the age which these growth and developmental changes occur. Stages and maturation is often a better indicator of nutritional requirements versus chronological age. That's a picture on the bottom left. And on the right, we see that during adolescence growth spurt, boys gain some fat, but add so much lean mass as muscle and bone that their percentage of body fat actually decreases, and girls gain more body fat and less lean tissue. And by age 20, females have about twice as much adipose tissue as males and about 10% less lean tissue. So what are their nutrient needs? Energy needs usually exceed that of adults. Boys require more energy than girls due to more muscle and larger bodies. Protein requirements are based on a per kilogram of body weight, same for boys and girls, and boys require more total protein because they're usually heavier. And the proportion of calories from carbs, fat, and protein recommendations are similar to adults. As far as vitamins, the need for most of the vitamins rise to adult levels during adolescence. The requirements for B vitamins, which are involved in energy metabolism, are higher in adolescence than in childhood because of their higher energy needs. And rapidly growing adolescents, they need B vitamins for protein synthesis and cell division for these growth spurts. As far as iron, the need for iron rises between childhood and adolescence. The iron is mostly used for hemoglobin, expansion of blood volume, and menstruation increases iron losses for young girls, making iron needs greater in girls as well. Calcium, adolescent growth spurts increase both the length and mass of bone, so adequate calcium intake during adolescence is essential for achieving peak bone mass to prevent osteoporosis later in life. And this also includes increased needs for vitamin D. And we know that milk and cheese, which are major sources of calcium in teen diets, but they can be high in saturated fats. Adolescents should be encouraged to consume low-fat dairy products, calcium-fortified cereals, and learn other sources of calcium, like vegetable sources of calcium, rather than whole milks and whole-fat cheeses. Here we can see a pie chart showing the consumption of soft drinks by children and adolescents, and it's increased since the 1970s, and milk consumption has decreased. Today, 46% of the beverage intake by weight is from soft drinks and other sweetened beverage, and only about 29% from milk. And this pattern has increased the intake of added sweeteners and decreased the amounts of calcium, magnesium, potassium, protein, and we really don't know how this is going to affect children of these generations in the 1970s. When they're older, we may see a lot more bone problems, bone fractures, osteoporosis, and diseases of the bone because of these changes. So how do we meet teens' nutritional needs? So the recommendations shown here for 11 and 18-year-old boys and girls who engage more than 60 minutes of activity daily. So you can see grains, whole grains, vegetables, a large amount, fruits, dairy, 3 cups every day for everybody, and lean protein sources. So these can be easily consumed, and we know that teenage boys, if you've had one or have one, eat a lot during this time, and we know that energy needs are quite great for that group of people. So what do we eat during, kids are going to eat fast food, and how do we make healthier fast food choices? So it's there's nothing wrong with an occasional fast food meal, but a steady diet of burgers, fries, and pizza will likely contribute to an overall unhealthy diet. We know fast food is typically low in fruits and vegetables and high in solid fats and sodium, And about 35% of the empty calories consumed by children are from